Hey, I want this to be sort of an evergreen video, a thing that people find years down the road, even months down the road, even weeks down the road. I have this, not idea, because I'm pretty sure it's true. If we take the 50 million Magic the Gathering players, or 20 million, or 10 million, or whatever number you think is the correct amount of people who are engaged with Magic the Gathering. The 50 million number is probably a lifetime number, as in anyone who's ever played Magic the Gathering, whether they're currently buying product or not. That's probably it. But if you look at the largest Magic the Gathering creators, and the largest of those is Tulare Community College, he's basically just about to hit 1 million subscribers. So that's 1/50th of the lifetime users of Magic the Gathering. Um, and that means that the vast majority, around, I don't know, 80% of people who have ever played Magic the Gathering are not engaged online. They're not engaged on YouTube, Reddit, forums, uh, Twitch. They might be engaged a little bit on Facebook or possibly Instagram. I guess to really tell you, you'd probably have to look at like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see how many people have engaged with Magic the Gathering content on there. And I'm not really watching those spaces that much, but it seems to me that just looking at YouTube in general, people are just not watching YouTube videos about Magic the Gathering, even if they're actively playing Magic the Gathering, actively buying Magic content. And those people represent easily over 50% of the people that are buying Magic product are not watching Magic the Gathering YouTube videos. And I would say that I would wonder why, but I'm not sure I'll ever really get the answer, because those people are not watching YouTube videos, and they're not going to watch this YouTube video, definitely. So therefore, I'm never going to see a comment about that. What I might be able to see a comment of is someone who was playing Magic the Gathering with their friends, or even at a local game store. They might, after a year or two, find YouTube videos about Magic the Gathering, and possibly stumble across my channel and this video, and let me know what got them involved in, I guess, the online community of Magic the Gathering. I would just be interested to know uh, about these people that are the basically driving Magic sales and Pokemon sales and other TCG products, because it's not the player base. The player base isn't driving the majority of sales. The players are driving a lot of the value, or the perceived value in there. They certainly do have an influence on that, but for the product, they are not. I mean, these days, especially the ones that are in the Tulare Community College camp, are buying singles. That's how they engage with the product, and buying the singles does drive product openings, and therefore a product opening is basically a purchase. But I don't think that they have that much influence over the amount of product that's moving, because a lot of people are incredulous as to how much product is being bought. And this is showcased now, especially with Final Fantasy, but even back to any of the sets, when people, like, you can see it especially with like a set that people consider to be garbage, like Aether Drift or Karlov Manor. Um, that stuff is still selling, and but players say that it's garbage and there's nothing of value in it, and they don't want any of it. But yet that stuff still sells. Not it's not going gangbusters, but it's selling and it's moving at a measured amount. And then you take Final Fantasy, and so many people who are convinced in their heads that no one is going to pay, I don't know, $1,000 US or $1,300 US for a collector booster box of Final Fantasy, and then it happens, and then they're like, oh, they'll never pay $1,500, they'll never pay $2,000, they'll never pay $3,000, they'll never pay $5,000, because they engage with the product in a very different way, right? They are buying singles, and they're buying packs, especially if, you know, they're drafting at their local game store. They might, from time to time, buy a box to draft with friends, and some of them might buy multiple boxes to save for drafts, or just because they do like cracking packs. But a lot of people don't really understand this enjoyment of cracking packs. They think that, for the most part, I guess, that the cracking of packs is something, you know, you do once in a while, but for the most part you engage with this hobby by buying singles and creating your decks and playing with people. But some people never play the game, and it's a small number in the overall picture of people involved in Magic the Gathering. But, you know, in Pokemon, it's more so. It's people just collecting, and very few players of the game. But people can't conceptualize that other people engage with things in a completely different manner than they do. And when they're told that someone does, they disbelieve it almost immediately. Especially, it's funny sometimes to watch, like someone says, I do X thing, and then someone comments and replies and says, no one does that. But clearly someone did, because they commented about it. And even in the face of someone saying that they do something, there's another person saying that no one does it. And I think that we get in our heads on Magic the Gathering YouTube that the stuff that we're talking about is the same stuff everyone in Magic the Gathering is talking about. And a lot of the time, that's just not the case. In fact, we are the minority talking about something that nobody talks about, right? Like, if you look at the banning of the Jeweled Lotus, and I think that if you look at the vast majority of Magic players, obviously everyone in your local game store and everyone that watches YouTube videos was discussing it. But I don't think that even half of all Magic players, collectors, investors, whatever, were discussing it. And there may even be upwards of 20-30% of them that have no idea that the Jeweled Lotus was banned, right? And it's interesting, because then there's an idea of what else are the majority of Magic players or people engaged in the hobby not discussing or not even aware of. How many people are aware that the Black Lotus exists? You would think that's 100% of people engaged with Magic the Gathering. But I was listening to Kitchen Table TCG's podcast, May the Zoo Be With You, and Josh and Louie and I forget the other guy's name now, Donald were discussing this, and I think that they're right, that there is a large chunk of Magic the Gathering people, and most of them might very well be very new within the last year, but there might be some that have been in Magic for a year or more, or even longer, that aren't aware of the Black Lotus's existence, right? Because when would you ever see it? I mean, if I look back when I first started playing Magic the Gathering in 93, I think it wasn't until probably 94. Yeah, it was probably no later than 95 that I discovered the Black Lotus's existence by looking at Scry magazine, and it must have been within like the first 6 months to a year of Magic's existence that I saw this Scry magazine listing, because the Black Lotus was listed for $50, and I looked at it and said to a friend, "Who would pay $50 for a card?" Right? And then, of course, you can watch the trajectory of the price of the Black Lotus. And even at that point, I didn't actually know what the Black Lotus did. I don't think there was a picture of it in the Scry magazine, and I never bothered to look it up. probably by about 95 or 96, I would have seen a picture. But then I would see a an artifact that comes in for 0. That's great. It costs nothing. And then it gives you 3 of any color of mana. But in my head, would I, there was no point at that point that I considered that powerful, that I considered that important enough to even throw in a deck. Like if I had that card, it wouldn't have gone in any of my decks because that wasn't how I was building decks, and that wasn't how I was playing against people, and that wasn't how they were playing against me. It's possible some of my friends would build a deck that would utilize the Black Lotus, but that wasn't something that I was doing. So at no point did I value the Black Lotus. So it took me a bit to know that it existed, and then it took me a bit to see what it looked like, and then it took me a bit to understand its power level, and that was probably close to a decade for that. And I think a lot of people are like that, and a lot of people aren't engaged in the wider discussion with strangers about the stuff. They're playing with their friends, and that certainly was also me. I was just playing with my friends until the late 90s, and then I stopped playing the game. But even then I was reading magazines and stuff like that, so I was getting little bits of more information. And I think that most people weren't reading magazines about gaming back then. A lot of us did read magazines, but some people played Magic the Gathering, and then they instead would have just got Sports Illustrated as a magazine to entertain them or something like that. And that's another thing that people don't understand, is that people might very well be very engaged with Magic the Gathering amongst their group of friends, but they have other hobbies, and those are the things that they're going on YouTube. So I'm not saying that people that are playing Magic the Gathering aren't on YouTube. They're just not finding Magic content because they're not interested in Magic content on YouTube, may not be aware of its existence, or for whatever reason are not finding YouTube videos because their algorithm is giving them the things that they're interested in amongst their wider group of friends. And Magic the Gathering is just a fun little thing they do from time to time at home. And the other things that they're interested in, like, I don't know, tech, so they're watching Linus Tech Tips or something like that, or cooking, and I don't know any cookie channels to name. So basically, everyone has their own little personalized algorithm, whether it's on social networks or in real life, where the things they're talking about and discussing are not necessarily the same things as the fun little hobby they purchase and play with friends. That it's just from time to time they play it, but really, they're really into soccer or something like that, or they're really into writing or 19th century art or sculpture or something like that, or hiking or any of those other things. And I think that we need to get out of our heads and think of what other people might be like, so that when we're engaging with a YouTube video or any other part of the social networks discussing Magic the Gathering, we don't assume that this is how everybody thinks, right? Now, it's interesting that Magic 30th was such a colossal failure and that it seemed to be universal, but this could also be accounted by the idea that, the vast majority of people that are involved in Magic the Gathering are not going to Secret Lairs. Like, Secret Lairs are doing okay, they're doing great, but the vast majority of players are not buying on the Secret Lair thing, or at the very least, they're not continually following when the next Secret Lair is coming. So they might find out that, there's a Marvel set with Wolverine and Captain America and Iron Man, and they might buy that, but they may not even connect that purchase to when they may have seen something about something called Magic 30th, which didn't seem to interest them, right? And then there's the rest of us, in general, who were terminally online, I guess, and we were, as en masse, upset about Magic 30th, about its cost or its reprints, or the fact that they were proxies or whatever. And that was the discussion that dominated up here. But to the other person, it's just that it didn't seem interested in them and they moved on to something else. And I just want to find out what those people are like and what they're interested in, so that I could see the differences between the collection of people that makes up the people that are buying Magic the Gathering product. But of course, I don't think I'm ever going to get information on those people, because they're not coming to YouTube for this, and they're not coming to this specific video. But maybe from time to time, there'll be someone who was like that, who wasn't engaged online with the hobby, and then became so. But then they're really one of us, so I can only gather so much information. So if you're one of those people who've never engaged with Magic the Gathering online until recently, and you're finding this video, or you can remember when you didn't for a long time and then came to YouTube and started watching YouTube videos, let me know about your experience, because I'm very interested in that. Anyway, have a good day.